How do you keep community members engaged? Whether you're leading a community of practice, an online community, a community of volunteers, or a professional community, engaging your members is probably top of mind for you. So, I'm going to share some ideas to boost engagement in your community, whether your members are old or young, or newcomers or long timers. These ideas will work for you. In this video, we're going to talk about 3 fundamental building blocks that every community needs to be wildly engaging. I'll share some real examples, and we're going to talk about some brain science too. Idea number 1 is have a purpose for your community. I have a friend who was on the school board of a startup charter school. And in the early days, they had this really big purpose. It was to build a school that not only was thriving, but surviving. And then after about 5 years or so, it was a real official school, and it was thriving, and it had survived, and it was going to continue on into the future. And their purpose, they didn't have that big driving purpose anymore. And my friend said, boy, in those early years, I was so engaged, and now less so. It seems less interesting, even though we did it, we won, right? So it's important to have a purpose for every community. In this case, it was a school board community, but it transcends to every kind of community that you work in. So you need to have a purpose. How do you figure out your community's purpose? Well, what are your members' goals? What are their challenges? What are their fears? Sometimes the people with the most profound challenges and fears and goals are the people at the top of your member organizations, but not always. Sometimes it's the people right below the top. They're sandwiched between the top and all of the staff, and they have lots of responsibilities. So kind of look at the demographics within your membership. Take into consideration the goals, challenges, and fears of all of those people in your membership, and then reverse engineer that into a purpose. What might a purpose be? A purpose might be helping people who are really underserved, helping people who are lonely in your membership, helping people who don't have a way to connect with other people, helping people benchmark, helping people succeed, helping people with a particular problem. So think through, again, their goals, challenges, and fears, and then work out your purpose. Idea number 2, make your community a safe space. So the moment somebody gets a curt answer, or the moment somebody is ignored, or the moment somebody is slightly shamed, like, boy, that was a dumb idea or a dumb question, it's not just the shamee, that one person that is hurt. It is your entire community. Everybody who witnessed that unsafe thing is now hurt by this. So without leadership, communities can get people to fill roles in a vacuum. They get unofficial policemen, they get an aggressive salesperson, they might even get bullies. And we don't want that. What we want is we want to create a kinder, gentler community. And to do that, you need to model psychological safety. Amy Edmondson is a Harvard professor, and she coined the term team psychological safety. And she says that team psychological safety is a felt permission for candor. Now, I'm going to give you a longer definition here that I pulled from the Harvard Business Review. I'll put this into the show notes. That team psychological safety is a shared belief held by members of a team, or in your case, community, that it is okay to take risks, express their ideas and concerns, to speak up with questions, and to admit mistakes, all without fear of negative consequences. As a leader in your community, you can model safe behaviors and never model unsafe behaviors. So it's worth asking yourself and your other team leaders, what does psychological safety look like in the context of our community? And then talk about the behaviors that you want to model and that you hope others will replicate, and then go ahead and model those behaviors you want to see. So some examples of behaviors: how you respond to people, how you respond to members in your community. That's modeling safety, right? Because if you're acting interested, if you're open, if you're generous, those kinds of things model safety. And an anti-modeling thing would behaving in a way that other people could perceive as being cliquey, right? Being all clumped up in a group. When people come into the room, it looks like there's cliques. So instead, you don't want to do that. You want to break apart. You want to welcome newcomers. So think about how to model psychological safety. Idea number 3, cultivate a great community culture. So speaking of behaviors, we were just talking about safety, but you can also model behaviors to create the community that you want to create. So we often talk about organizational culture. Every community also has a culture in the same way that organizations have a culture. There's a culture, a vibe, an ethos that surrounds every community. Some communities you'll see are very kind and open and generous, and other communities maybe are a little quieter and aloof and reserved. And maybe you even see other communities that are cliquey and gossipy and all of those things, right? Every community takes on a culture, a different culture, no matter whether the leaders mean to have it happen or not. And so you can curate, you can change, you can shape your culture. And one way to do it is by asking yourself the question, what kind of vibe is going to benefit our members the most? So I know of one organization, one community that is a book authors community. And the founder really modeled kindness and support and joy, a kind of intense thoughtfulness before you speak. And what you saw all 100 of her community members modeling back is that same kind of kindness and support and joy and thoughtfulness before they spoke. It's really lovely community. So you can model those behaviors. How do you model those behaviors? Ask yourself the question, what kind of culture, ethos, environment do I want to create where my members are going to flourish? List a whole bunch of words, and then ask yourself the second question, which is, and what kinds of behaviors will model the kind of culture, vibe, ethos words that we have already picked? You can ask those questions of yourself. You can ask those questions of all of your other leaders. You can work to ask those questions in a group of volunteer leaders. And the answers will help you create a thriving, really engaged member community. Do you want to dive deeper on these insights? Get your copy of the Guide to Shaping Your Community's Culture, and you'll learn the 5 steps to make any community a magical place to be.